what I want to talk about, and what a lot of people on Twitter have said, is, well, who's watching this championship? Like, and when you think about
We
it,
are. We're watching.
well, we're watching, true, but when they say that, people compare the viewing figures, rightly or wrongly, but people do compare it to Formula One, and Formula One can bring in 100 million people around the world that watches it. Formula E might be lucky to get 100,000 people around the world watching Formula E, right? And which is like a 1/10 scale, right? Which people have been branding. And I was like, oh, can't be a reason, right? The technology is more important. But then I was like, hang on. These teams, yes, they're racers. Yes, they want to pioneer this technology. But if they're not getting prize money, which we have to remember, prize money, it doesn't come out of thin air. Prize money comes out from TV contracts and people watching it. And if no one's watching it, if you're not attracting people, and Formula have been trying to attract people for years, but then when you see that in the UK, a huge market, a huge racing fan base, is stuck somewhere on the internet on BBC iPlayer, and it's kind of fiddly to get to. It's not in front of someone. You have to go out searching to get Formula E coverage, which might put people off or might make people just forget that Formula E is on. So when prize money, and we can see like the Premier League, talk to Premier League, the Premier League is one of the most hotly expensive, TV money costs in the world, right? Probably up there with Formula One, probably more than Formula One, right? And that's why Premier League teams are so rich. It's because the prize money plus the TV money that they get is huge. So they can keep running, and then we get these incredible 200 million transfer fees and incredible budgets that they have. Whereas in Formula E, these teams are huge. Mercedes are a huge team. BMW, Audi, they're huge teams that can have the ability to have huge budgets and could then spend 60 million on a car. Easy, easy. But if they finish fourth or third or even first in the championship and they get 20 million, 10 million, 15 million for winning the championship, then the return of investment is completely gone. And therefore, what's the point of being in a championship when I have to spend X amount of money but not even make a profit at the end of the season?
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Jack. But one thing with TV rights, and I think this is one thing that Formula E really haven't capitalised on at all, is that everywhere around the world now, basically, the Formula One is shown on pay TV channels, and this is something that Formula E has failed to capitalise on every single time. It was here in the UK, they've shoved it on the red button. Yes, there was opportunities given to Channel 5 and ITV in the past, but even when it was on ITV4, like Formula E would get maybe a quarter of what the amount of views that there would be for the British Touring Car Championship on the same channel. And the thing is, it was developing at the time. The fact that there's this connection between Formula E and Discovery is actually really good, because it means that it can go out on Eurosport in every single country in Europe. And actually, that's one thing that I do think that they haven't capitalised on in the UK as well. That they haven't put, or they haven't just given it to Quest and shoved all the races on Quest for the entire season. Because the thing is, behind the red button, you're not going to get the viewers. You've got yes, we were supposed to have 2 races this year. We only got Marrakesh in the end on BBC Two. But I think in America, the fact that they're changing coverage this year to CBS, I think that'll be good, because it's been on Fox for like the last 5 years. But the thing is, they need to capitalize so much more. They need to, and I think this is something that they should have done maybe 5 or so years ago. Is that they should have just said, put this on your channels. We'll give you X amount to just put this on your channel on a Saturday afternoon. That's what they should have done. And then once it starts picking up a following, then the bidding war starts between who it is. But I think TV rights is one thing that they've just Formula E have dropped the ball on far too long. And there was a point a couple of years ago where the option for the UK was literally just going to be YouTube. And so the fact that there are. I mean, you could have an anatomy of Formula E and go, there's an issue, there's an issue, there's an issue, there's an issue, there's an issue. Whereas you can still do that with every single motor racing series, but it's just not to the extent that it is with Formula E, unfortunately.
My question is though, Ed, will Formula E ever have the following, because it's such a new motorsport and because it's so out there and because it's so new and innovating, will it ever have the potential to grow, to maybe have an audience of 500,000, 600,000, a million, or 10 million people? Will it ever get there?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I sort of feel like it's a niche within a niche, right? And I don't know. We talked about how it sort of got Formula E in the UK got over the years has sort of been passed around some of the major channels like a kind of beach ball, and it's not really made too much traction on any of them. I think the thing is that Formula E amongst the general public, and I think this is certainly true in the UK. I'm not sure if it's a worldwide thing as well, but there's a sense that it kind of, even after 7 seasons, it still lacks a sort of credibility that other series seem to have, especially amongst motorsport fans. I mean, maybe people who don't watch other motorsports don't feel the same way, but there's a sense that, especially towards fan boost as well, seems to be the real big sticking point that people have. I feel like that's scared away more fans than it's attracted over the years. It'd be interesting if there was a way of measuring that, of course, but I don't have one to hand. The other thing, I get the sense that Jamie Regal and the new CEO of Formula E, who's taking over from again, I get the sense that Formula E's manager, they're sort of in denial about how bad things are, because I read an article by The Race that Sam Smith wrote where he basically, we found a letter that Regal wrote during Berlin, and it basically didn't seem to mention any of the problems that Audi or BMW were hung up with at all. It seemed to be like, well, we're doing a great job considering all the challenges we've got and everything's fine. And you get the sense that they think the audience is growing, but the statistics don't necessarily seem to back that up in terms of TV viewing figures and stuff. So I do think there is concern. There are things they can do. What they've done so far, gimmicky stuff like the Voltage show they did a few seasons ago with just influencers who didn't care about the sport and were just being paid to be there. I thought that, again, was another thing that did more harm than good for the sport in terms of trying to attract new viewers. You got to make sure it has credibility. That's what's important to me. Because if people just think it's a joke, they lose interest.